For those of you who think you know what that Great Pyramid on the Giza Plateau truly is, I'm going to change your mind with this video. This is the closest approximation to a scientific method of analyzing the Great Pyramid that has ever been conducted. You will understand when you see. Many people can isolate particulars about the Great Pyramid because it has all the fundamentals of physics encoded within it. It's easy to find patterns. That's what we are. We are creatures of pattern recognition. What I'm going to show you defies patterns. What I'm about to show you in this video right here requires a much deeper analysis than I am able to give it. It's so profound that I'm humbled sometimes in just trying to really decipher what it is I have found. I'm really seeking people with greater minds than I who can put these pieces together. But this is a really fascinating presentation. Please stick with it till the end. 14 years ago, when my publisher released my first book, The Lost Scriptures of Giza, I had no idea the rabbit hole I was going to go down researching the Great Pyramid of Egypt. Little did I know that it was going to take me deeper and deeper into the depths of world chronology, which led to researching books most people have never heard of. When the Sun Darkens was published in 2009 by the same publisher. This book is the beginning of my Phoenix research. Before that book could get published, I had uncovered so much data I had to put out a second book about the Phoenix chronology. And I did, Nostradamus and the Planets of Apocalypse. This book, too, required a lot of searching down different rabbit holes, really, and I uncovered so much more information. I began to tie in all the loose ends on the flat earth, on the mud flood research, on world chronology, on simulation theory. It all began to a coherent synthesis, and all these different mysteries began to take form. My next book, Shocking Secrets of Antiquity, is huge. 422 bibliographic sources. Many of you have seen Matthew Devereaux's posts in on the Facebook group. You're familiar with some of that material. These 4 books only show a world chronology of 138-year intervals. I did not know what I'm about to show you now in this video when I wrote those books. But those dates are not dated by me, they're dated by other authors, and I provide those source materials in my bibliographic references. Enjoy this video. This is Jason of Archaics.com. I'm going to change your mind of what you think that Great Pyramid is. The mystery of history is coding. This thesis completely shatters every theory of the Great Pyramid ever told, ever sold, or said. When you fully understand the implications of this video, you will agree. A series of numbers representing years and disasters appears in records from antiquity that defy ordinary explanation. They reappear in recorded historical texts over and over again. Then, in a third and most astonishing place, these same numbers appear all together in a synthesis so profound that their arrangement forms a holographic blueprint in multiple dimensions. All 3 are found in this item. This chronology is shown in our posts, articles, videos, and published books to isolate May 2040 as the next visitation of the Phoenix phenomenon. Not an intruder world. It's worse. Part 1. Phoenix periods cited. Censorinus in the 3rd century AD wrote that Aristarchus of Samos reckoned a great year as 2,484 years, which is 138 times 18. This 2484-year period was the time between 2 cataclysms, according to Aristarchus. This Ionian mathematician and astronomer studied at the hallowed halls of the Alexandrian library, and he had access to materials that we no longer possess. 2484 years betrays a knowledge of a definite chronology that existed in his time, further evidenced by the fact that 2 centuries prior to him, Thales of Miletus, another Ionian scholar, accurately predicted the phoenix blackening of the sun in the month of May, 583 BC. 2484 years added to 2484 years is 4,968 years. Dr. Barry Wormkessel concludes, after reviewing historic records and modern scientific reports, that Vulcan, which to him is a distant Jovian-sized planet that's a member of our solar system, this distant Jovian-sized dark star companion of our sun is on a highly inclined 4968-year orbit. Vulcan attracts comets from the Kuiper belt, Cooper, I'm not sure, and has formed multiple, at least 5 comet swarms that pass through the inner solar system. These comet fragments hit Earth at quasi-periodic time intervals, 3,313, give or take 200 years is his estimate, which is really interesting because 3,312 is divisible by 138. It's 138 times 24. His Vulcan is none other than the Phoenix. I have personally exchanged correspondence with Dr. Wormkessel and my data that the Phoenix is indeed the Vulcan that he has discovered. Around 1902, the historian Hans Bellamy published a series of books concerning the capture flood, the sudden appearance of our moon in the skies in a world that had never seen the lunar orb before. A cataclysm had occurred, widespread flooding. Bellamy published that an analysis of Maya reliefs and tradition held that this destruction from the sky was connected to an event that was measured at 2,760 years. This is 138 times 20. Also in ancient America, we have the Inca remembering a catastrophe that began their own history. In 1624, historian Montesinos wrote that the Inca recalled a beginning period of 2,070 years, which is 138 times 15. This is too arbitrary of a duration. If not derived from a precise historical chronology, then they would have just said 2,000 years. In 1658, Archbishop James Ussher published his famous World Chronology. It is found in many Bibles. He had access to historical records that have since been lost or hidden in the past 362 years. This chronographer describes an unknown astronomical body appearing in the skies, causing the Ogygian flood in the Old World calendar year of the year 2208 Annus Mundi. 2208 is 138 times 16. This was 1687 BC in our own modern-day Gregorian calendar, and it is the subject of many videos in Archaics. The Archbishop's source materials were different. Over 340 years before, Stephen Jones concluded also that the sun darkened during a major worldwide series of quakes in the year 2208 of the Book of Jasher chronology and the Assyrian eponyms. Jones published his findings in the 1990s in his book, The Secrets of Time, and he does not mention once that his materials derived from Archbishop James Ussher. Strangely, Bishop Ussher died in 1656 Common Era, and according to the Genesis 10 Patriarchs chronology, it is the conclusion of over 40 ancient writers that the Old World civilizations ended in a great flood in the 1656 year, which is 138 times 12. This is curious, for any ancient Egyptian ceremony concerning a flood concerns a 1656 month period, and 1656 months is exactly 138 years. Over 900 years ago, the Talmudic researcher Rashi, around 1090 CE, wrote that the Great Flood occurred in the 1656 year, and that 1656 years was a definite period of time that occurred between cataclysms. Half of 2484 is 1242. And the French Jewish prophet Nostradamus wrote in a private letter that 1242 years, which is 138 times 9, was the period before the flood from Adam to Noah. Stephen Jones published charts in a book demonstrating that over 60 historical events were all transpired on timelines that were 414 years apart from each other. Again, this is interesting, for 414 is 138 times 3. Stephen Jones knew nothing about the Phoenix research because the archaics research and Phoenix research by myself was not conducted until years later. The Egyptian 1656 moons that designate a 138-year period is paralleled in the old Jewish tradition of the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah and the appearance of the angel of death every 138 years. This is the Jewish tradition. The angel of death. Phoenix, anciently depicted with burning wings like a seraphim angel in Scripture. Every duration listed is a Phoenix number divisible by 138. 2484, 4968, 3312, 2760, 2208, 1656, 1242, 414, 138. To put this list together after the destruction of so many texts, libraries, and traditions is remarkable in itself. Now, part 2, Phoenix dates in history. The following dates are all dated in other records and sources when Phoenix appeared and caused worldwide or localized continental quakes, blackening of the sun, moon turning red, meteoric fallout, volcanism, lithospheric displacements, mud floods, and a harrowing vibration so terrific, people, communities, and structures simply sank into the earth and remained trapped underground when the vibrating stopped, returning the ground to a hard solid. Buried alive. These years where this occurred was 4307 BC, 3895 BC, which begins the Genesis narrative of the pre-flood world, 2653 BC, 2239 BC, the Great Flood so popularized in antiquity, 1963 BC, 1687 BC, the collapse of the Heliolithic empires, 1549 BC, 1411 BC, 1273 BC, 1135 BC, 721 BC, 583 BC, 307 BC, 246 Common Era, 384 Common Era, 522 Common Era. Then there's a 1,104-year period where there's no records, but many legends of destroyed civilizations throughout the ancient Americas. Phoenix returns in 1626. Again, it is seen by astronomer Hoffman and over 1 million Europeans in 1764. And then in 1902, it visited our world. And history books have been scrubbed, but archaics has put the picture back together by original source materials that have seemed to have been Mandelaed in some way. The Mandela effect being orchestrated or manufactured. These records are being scrubbed. 1902 was a harrowing year in world chronology. The next visitation, of course, is May 2040. Every date is on the 138-year Phoenix timeline. Our videos and book bibliographies provide all the source materials for the data. There are more records, but not definitively dated. And we have more yet probably undiscovered in our thousands of pages of notes we have not yet been able to go through. We have a lot. We have a lot on our plate. We're trying to get it all out as best as we can. This thesis does not deal with approximates. That we have so many records is astonishing unto itself. Now, part 3, the Phoenix Holofield Mysterium. The book Lost Scriptures of Giza is a work unlike any other on the origin and purpose of the Great Pyramid in Egypt. Over 1,000 facts gleaned from hundreds of ancient and old source materials. This book concludes that the Great Pyramid is the original structure and all other pyramids were attempts to copy it. It was designed to survive a cataclysm to preserve knowledge that only at an end-time generation would be able to perceive. It was built during a 1656-year pre-cataclysm period. It protects a secret important to saving humanity. The elect will rediscover what this important knowledge is. For those wanting to read this book, in the comments section, I'll provide a link to the Amazon. You can get it real cheap, just Amazon Kindle, or you can order the paperback. What you are about to read, what you are about to hear right now defies coincidence. It has never been published. There are over 1,000 books on the Great Pyramid and many more YouTube videos, but nothing you are about to review in this video is found in any of them. You are about to learn the principal message of this most enigmatic monument. No pharaoh, no known historical civilization, no ordinary architecture could have encoded this material in this gigantic structure. Only the most advanced scientific measurements ever conducted in and outside of the Great Pyramid could even produce these revelations. Flinders Petrie used instruments accurate to 1,000th of an inch, and his measurements are today accepted by Egyptologists. No other building in the world is so precise, a self-referencing holographic model of our space-time coding. The Great Pyramid is enormous, a 41-story high structure. It is 203 levels of blocks, some courses higher than others. The beginning of the 144th level is 4140 inches above the pyramid foundation. 144 is the great number of the golden mean, the Fibonacci series. It is 12 times 12. It is the cycle within a cycle. And that level of blocks marks the 4,140th inch above the pyramid foundation. 4140 is 138 times 30. This exterior height is replicated in the internal descending passage mean length. The east terminus length is 4134 inches. The west terminus is 4146 inches. The central mean distance is 4140 inches of passage length from pyramid entrance to subterranean passage floor joint. The subject of the pyramid inch is very controversial, but it's controversial for means that are outside the context of this video and this research. People have tried to prove that there was a historical timeline in the Great Pyramid in the past, and we have other videos and posts concerning this topic, so we're not going to waste that time here. But the prime unit of measurement to build the entire Great Pyramid derives from the ancient megalithic yard, which is seen in ancient monuments all around the planet, principally in the UK. Now, that unit of measurement we call the pyramid inch, because it was used everywhere throughout the Great Pyramid. The Great Pyramid references itself multiple times and in multiple dimensions, every unit of measurement that was employed to build it. The vertical distance from bottom of floor slab, called the Great Step central axis of the monument, or floor of the King's Chamber, straight down to the ceiling of the subterranean chamber, is 2,726 inches, and the horizontal length of the subterranean passage itself is 1,414 inches. Together, they add up to 4,140 inches, 138 times 30. This is self-referencing. The Great Step is a peculiar 126-inch long block of limestone. The rest of the floor of the King's Chamber is granite. The King's Chamber from floor to ceiling is 230 inches. This 126 times 230 is 28,980, or 4,140 times 7, again, divisible by 138. The height of the subterranean chamber at 11 feet 6 inches high is 138 inches. At this 138-inch height roof in the underground chamber, we find a ceiling that is 552 inches in width, or 138 times 4. While this 552-inch distance is below the pyramid, above the pyramid, 552 is geometrically inferred. The present height of the Great Pyramid is 5,448 inches. This is 203 courses of blocks. This is 552 inches under 6,000 inches, meaning the flat-topped 203rd level is 552 inches under 6,000 inches. As above, so below. When a cornerstone is put on top of the Great Pyramid, it will be 552 inches high, 138 times 4. The central subterranean pit access to the end of the subterranean passage is a horizontal distance of 908 inches, and the subterranean passage floor surface is a vertical distance of 1162 inches below the pyramid's baseline. The subterranean horizontal and vertical distance is 2070 inches, 908 plus 1162. 2070 is 138 times 15. The 552-inch width of the subterranean chamber is 1,070 inches below the pyramid's baseline. The length of the entire subterranean passage level is 1414 inches. This vertical subterranean distance and horizontal underground distance add up to 2484. 1070 plus 1414. 2484 is 138 times 18. Now, adding the 552 ceiling width to 2484 is 3,036 inches. Again, divisible by 138, but more importantly, it is a common measurement throughout the pyramid. This 3,036 inches is the exact length of the descending passage from the passage axis conjunct to the descending passage floor joint. 3,036 inches is 138 times 24, or 253 feet. That is a very long distance to go through scores of courses of block with granite casing on the inside of the tunnels to be laser perfect, smooth, and precise. Many people think the Great Pyramid is just piles of blocks on top of it. It's not. The exterior looks that way because the Muslims stripped away the white limestone casing blocks to build the city of Cairo after an earthquake in the 13th century AD. The actual interior, this system of unusual chambers and passages, they are laser precise. The tolerances exceed what we produce on bank sidings today in marble. Let's see. The entrance of the Grand Gallery is 1,200 inches above the baseline foundation of the Great Pyramid. The ceiling of the Grand Gallery is 1,836 inches distance, and added to the gallery floor height of 1,200 inches is 3,036. Again, we find that number. The pyramid is self-referencing. Half of 3,036 is 1,518, 138 times 12. The passage axis conjunct is 3,036 inches down the subterranean passage from the conjunct to the floor joint. And measuring the opposite direction from the passage axis conjunct to the pyramid perimeter is 1,518 inches. The actual height of the Great Pyramid is 5,448 present inches, but the 51.51 degree sloping angles of the monument reveal that the top cornerstone would be 3,066 inches high for a total monument height of 5,814 inches. Not my discovery, 5,814 geometrical height known since the 1920s. This 1514 finished height is a vertical distance of 4,968 inches above the Queen's Chamber floor, which is 846 inches above the pyramid's baseline. 4,968 is 138 times 36, and 2484, which is 2484 plus 2484. The bottom of the foundation slab of the Great Pyramid that serves as the floor of the King's Chamber is 1,656 inches above the pyramid's baseline. 1,656 is 138 times 12. The Great Pyramid has 4 sockets at its 4 corners. The length and width of the northwest and northeast sockets are 138 inches. The Phoenix numbers appear here in multiple dimensions. The passage axis conjunct is 176 inches above the pyramid baseline, and 176 times pi, 3.14, is 552. Again, that's 138 times 4. The King's Chamber is 230 inches high. The Queen's Chamber is 144 inches high. The subterranean chamber is 138 inches high. 230 plus 144 plus 138 is 512. 512 times phi, the golden proportion of 1.618, is 828, or 138 times 6. Phi is golden proportion. It is 1.618, and it appears everywhere in nature. It is the primary substrate coating for the holosphere. The simulacrum operates off a coating run by 1.618, 3.1416, and 5.08. The 3 chamber heights are all commensurate with 138, which is the holosphere simulacrum's resonance. 138 is profound. It is the principal message of the Great Pyramid in Egypt. The King's Chamber on the floor, the distance is 534 inches to the great step central axis of the pyramid. This is the central axis of the entire monument. This king's chamber is 412 inches long, 204 inches wide, and 230 inches high. 534 plus 412 plus 204 plus 230 is 1,380, which is 138 times 10. Note, the king's chamber, it had explosive pressure, which added an inch according to modern published research. But these dimensions are pre-explosion measurements. 534-inch horizontal length of the great step slab of the king's chamber and the 846th vertical length of the queen's chamber floor to the pyramid baseline adds up to 1380, 138 times 10. In 1926, the engineer David Davidson published that it was his calculation that the Great Pyramid's internal rectilinear timeline isolated a certain year important to pyramid chronology at the passage axis conjunct. Not knowing anything of the Phoenix timeline, the Phoenix research of resets and mud floods, cataclysm, Davidson published that this year was 2484 Anno Pyramid. Again, 2484 is divisible by 138. Central axis great step face is 34 inches high to the king's chamber floor surface, and the great step floor joint with the grand gallery is 1656 inches above the baseline of the monument. This is 1,690 inches down to the baseline, which is 1,070 inches above the subterranean ceiling, for a total of 2,760 inches, 138 times 20. The perimeter of the Great Pyramid sloping distance upward to the entrance is 808 inches, this entrance being 666 inches above the pyramid baseline. The entrance to the passage axis conjunct is 1,110 inches, which itself is 176 inches above the baseline of the monument. 808 plus 1,110 plus 666 plus 176 is 2,760. Again, 138 times 20. The great step central axis of the Great Pyramid to the perimeter of the monument is 4,554 inches, which is 138 times 33. David Davidson measured the exterior of the Great Pyramid and determined that its four sides are at 51.51 degrees from the base perimeter to apex, but it's been conclusively shown in measurements and photographs that the pyramid actually has 8 sides, each face having 2 planes only slightly angled. Thus, 51.51 times 8 is 414, 138 times 3. A holographic blueprint of our space-time structure. Our holofield is coded to revolve at 365.25 days a year, a figure found encoded in the Great Pyramid many times over and mentioned in several books. What these facts and measurements mean is that the physical dimensions of the Great Pyramid are connected to the 138-year Phoenix phenomena visitations, that the message of its builders concerned themselves with building a gigantic structure that would preserve these patterns for future posterity. What this also means is that every tradition, article, book, YouTube video, theory, or idea about the function of the Great Pyramid and its purpose and the purpose of the Great Pyramid in Egypt is false, if not incorporating into their model this 138-year unit spatial and calendrical data. Now, you decide what all this means. Did they build a monument that created an interface pattern in reality and caused the Phoenix destructions? Or are the traditions true? Is Giza a relic of our salvation? Do we reactivate it to stop this phenomenon? If you perceive a third alternative, please offer it. We have many videos on the true history and facts about the Great Pyramid. Please check them out in the comment section. So in the end, we're left with a super construction, not one of modern provenance, but one from distant antiquity that was erected so long ago that it's not mentioned in any ancient written records as what it is, the Great Pyramid and its function. Instead, we have it mentioned thousands of times in metaphor, in allegory, in secondhand sources, in tradition, not knowing exactly what they were preserving. This is what my first book, Lost Scriptures of Giza, reveals. Hundreds of traditions from around the world that when put together, you realize they're talking about the Great Pyramid of Egypt, or a knowledge of such a place. Now, We have two different bodies of information that have been coalesced in this video. We have a very well documented Phoenix history of 138-year intervals, and yet we have also those same 138-year intervals all found in multiple dimensions of the Great Pyramid's rectilinear measurements, using the most scientific measurements ever conducted in the Great Pyramid, which are still accepted by Egyptologists today. The main point of this video is to convey, if you have a theory about the Great Pyramid, if you think you know what the Great Pyramid, if you're publishing books and videos, if you're giving lectures and seminars, if you're Graham Hancock or anybody like him, and you think you know what the Great Pyramid is, that's all good. Everybody's entitled to a theory, a hypothesis. But if you do not incorporate this 138 interval holographic blueprint into your theory, then you're wrong, because it's the principal message of the Great Pyramid itself. Where I'm at now is, was the pyramid constructed to interface with this 138-year protocol and disrupt it, to stop the resets? Is the chief cornerstone the savior of humanity who's going to descend from heaven upon the monument of man and do this for us? Or can we do it ourselves? That's where I'm at. Maybe you can see something that I can't.